Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ Riesinger.
And I'm Jeanelle Slade. Today, a push in the right direction to create safety for a Billings neighborhood just below the rims.
After extensive research and planning, the city today working to safely remove large boulders where just 2 months ago, a portion of the rims came crashing down and destroyed a Billings home.
Now, the ultimate goal to remove any potential hovering threat to the surrounding neighborhood.
Q2's Zoe Zandora was on site today to show us how.
A home destroyed by falling rocks from the rims, an effort to try and ensure safety in the future for those living in the neighborhood below, and to secure the safety of the workers the city of Billings needs to have working in the right of way to get rid of the remains of the previous rockslide.
Yeah, we've needed to go through, we wanted to make sure we found the folks who do this, who are professionals, who know what they're doing. We put the work out to bid, had contractors come and review it, and we wanted to. You don't get two chances to do this right.
Apex is drilling holes inside the rocks, and after those holes are made, an airbag is put inside and inflated with a compressor, allowing the rock to separate and break into pieces.
That airbag just puts pressure on that rock and just dislodged it enough to where it came down.
Chris Kukolski says safety really is the driver, making sure the workers who will haul the rest of the rocks off from the right-of-way are safe.
Anytime we've got people working in the right-of-way, whether they're city employees or contractors, we just have to, safety has to be our top priority. And so that's really been the impetus of the work that's being done.
Once the rock scaling work is done, another crew will haul the rest of the rocks out, and then Kukolski says the streets will be opened back up and it will be business as usual.
Neighbors have been really good to work with. They've been patient as we worked our way through it, and I think they've genuinely appreciated the steps to be communicating with them as to where we are in the process.
In Billings, Zoe Zandora, MTN News.
Thanks, Zoe. And as far as a timeline, Kukolski says if all goes according to plan, the cleanup should be finished by Christmas.
Well, the flu season is well underway for most of the country. The latest CDC data shows that as of November 30th, 30 states and Puerto Rico have either reported widespread or regional activity. Now, here's what flu activity looks like in Montana right now. According to the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services, influenza is active in at least 2 regions of the state, but not yet widespread. However, activity is increasing with 34 new cases over Thanksgiving week. So far, there have been just over 100 confirmed flu cases for the season. 14 people have been hospitalized. Now, experts say even though the season is just getting started, it is not too late to get your flu shot.
A recent Montana study that's captured much attention found alarmingly high levels of metals in Butte babies. MTN's John Amy spoke with one of the study authors who says this research needs to go further.
A 2018 study conducted by a Montana Tech chemistry professor measuring metal concentration in newborn stool samples in Butte started as a small experiment. It ended with a big result.
I expected to see a higher metal concentration in Butte, but I didn't expect it to be this large. So we were very surprised.
15 samples were taken from healthy babies in Butte and compared with 17 samples from newborns in South Carolina. Higher levels of copper, zinc, and manganese were found in the babies from Butte.
And so more samples should be collected. A much larger study should be conducted.
Dr. Haler is seeking a grant for a proposed 5-year study that will sample at least 200 babies and their mothers to determine if there's a problem with elevated levels in Butte.
It takes money. Unfortunately, this type of work is very expensive.
Things everyday people can do to avoid metal contamination is to wash your hands regularly and take your shoes off before going inside the house. But the doctor says that until more research is done on these elevated levels of exposure, we still won't know much. But until then, there is no need to panic.
Butte produces normal, healthy babies every day. So I don't want I don't want people in Butte to panic.
In Butte, John Amy, MTN News.
And researchers are now applying for a federal grant to get funding for the expanded study on the issue.
Well, the fatal incurable chronic wasting disease is spreading. Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks reporting 25 new cases have now been documented, bringing the statewide total to 91. And while the majority of the new positive samples were from animals in known CWD zones, 2 samples were from areas where the disease had never been. Now, this includes a mule deer doe harvested south of the Fort Peck Reservation and a white-tailed buck harvested in Rosebud County. The 2 areas are near CWD management zones. The general hunting season is now closed, so FWP will now review management strategies in order to figure out how to best combat that disease.
Well, for the first time ever in 152 years, the Episcopal Diocese of Montana has elected a female bishop. The Reverend Martha Stebbins is the 10th bishop of the diocese. Stebbins most recently served in North Carolina and is a board-certified veterinarian with a PhD in veterinary bacteriology. Stebbins spent much of her time as a priest working in rural communities and already feels a kinship with Montana.
Montana, I think it's a little bit different than maybe some other dioceses, simply because even before women had a vote, you all sent a woman to Congress. So Montana has a very long history of having women not only in formal leadership, but certainly in informal leadership.
Bishop Stebbins is not a storm the barricades kind of person. She's the kind of person that's going to go in and listen and learn and help people think through how can we follow Jesus together here and how do we do it most effectively so that it really matters. I've seen her do it before and she'll do it again.
And her ordination is tomorrow at St. Paul's United Methodist Church in Helena.
There's more news from across our state on tonight's MTN 9 o'clock news. We're going to tell you how some towns across Montana are allowing residents to trade food to pay off their city fines. Join me for that and more tonight at 9 on the CW.
But first on tonight's Q2 530 News, the day that will live in infamy and the men and women who are remembered as heroes. More on Montana's impact next.
And later in sports, we're going to go to Las Vegas. We have some highlights from round 1 of the National Finals Rodeo on the way.
And today was one of those days when we wondered what we were doing inside with the warm temperatures outdoors. Temperatures warmed up into the upper 40s, almost 50 degrees. Details on the weekend forecast coming up.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 530 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.